Have you ever felt completely invisible in a room full of people? Like no matter how hard you try, you're just not enough for the world to see you? That's how I felt the night I walked into that restaurant. I had put on my best dress, nothing too flashy, but classy. I even wore heels, even though my feet were still aching from my shift earlier that day. It had been a long week, but that day, I passed my final business exam. After juggling work, my kid, and school for almost 3 years, I finally saw the light at the end of the tunnel. I wanted to treat myself, just one quiet dinner, just me. I felt proud, I felt worthy. But the moment I stepped inside, that pride started to melt. The hostess looked me up and down like I'd walked into the wrong place. One waiter whispered something to another, and they laughed. I smiled politely and asked for a table. She didn't even check her book before saying, "Sorry, we're fully booked for the night." I looked around, there were at least 4 empty tables. I pointed one out gently, thinking maybe they were being held for reservations. She stiffened and repeated, "Fully booked." It hit me, that feeling I knew too well, that quiet, bitter rejection. The one that doesn't come with slurs or yelling, just looks, just silence, just the cold sense that you don't belong. I remembered being 10, in a ballet class where no one wanted to partner with me. The teacher smiled, but moved on. I remembered my mom telling me to keep my head high, even when the world tried to lower it. And right then, I had a choice. Do I turn around quietly, or do I stay standing? I cleared my throat gently and asked, "Would you happen to know how long the wait might be, just in case something opens up?" The hostess didn't even look up from her screen. "We're not taking walk-ins tonight," she snapped. "You should try somewhere else." Her tone was sharp, like I'd already annoyed her just by existing. I opened my mouth to respond, but just then, the door opened behind me. A well-dressed white couple stepped in. The woman was wearing heels that clicked loudly on the floor, and the man had a blazer slung casually over his shoulder. They smiled, looking just as spontaneous as I probably had. "Hi, we don't have a reservation," the man said with a friendly grin. "Any chance you can squeeze us in?" The hostess's face lit up. "Let me see what I can do," she said sweetly, flipping through the book that didn't exist for me. Within seconds, she was grabbing 2 menus and leading them to one of the empty tables I had just asked about. I stood there frozen, my cheeks burned with a mix of anger and shame. I stepped closer and asked, gently, "I'm sorry, but I thought you said there were no walk-ins?" The hostess spun around. "Ma'am, I told you we're full, but I started, my voice trembling. She raised her voice, cutting me off. "Look, I don't know what you want from me. We have a dress code and a full house, maybe come back another time." By now people were watching, a few diners glanced up from their tables. A man at the bar turned to look. The couple who had just been seated, looked away quickly, clearly uncomfortable. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave," the hostess said loudly. I wanted to say something, anything, but before I could, a man in a suit appeared beside her. "What's the issue here?" he asked. "She's causing a disturbance," the hostess said quickly. "I've already explained we're full." The manager didn't even look at me, just nodded and said, "Then please escort her out." I stood there swallowing my pride, like it was broken glass. I nodded slowly, turned around, and walked out. Outside, I sat down on the bench near the entrance. My hands were shaking. I took out my phone, and dialed my mom. "Hey," I said, barely holding it together. "Baby, what's wrong?" I tried to speak, but the words got stuck behind the lump in my throat. "Take a breath," she said gently. "Tell me what happened." I told her everything. The looks, the lies, the humiliation. She was quiet for a moment, then she said, "Listen to me. You are not invisible, you are not small, you are my daughter, and you are worth more than any table in that place." I wiped my tears and nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "You hear me?" she said again. "Yes," I whispered. "I hear you." I sat there in silence, phone still in my hand, my mom's words echoing in my head. My chest ached. Not just from the humiliation, but from the loneliness that followed it. I had worked so hard. This night was supposed to be a celebration, not a reminder of how some people still saw me. I wiped my cheeks with the edge of my sleeve, hoping no one saw me crying. "Excuse me," a voice said gently. "Are you all right?" I looked up. An older man stood in front of me, dressed in a tailored charcoal suit. His silver hair was neatly combed back, and there was something calm about his eyes, warm, not nosy. I straightened a little. "I'm fine," I said quickly, trying to smile. He didn't move closer, didn't sit down uninvited, he just stood there, hands in his pockets. "I was inside," he said softly. I saw what happened. I immediately tensed. "Look, I don't need pity. It's fine. I'm used to this kind of thing." "I'm not offering pity," he said, "just human decency. And maybe someone to talk to." I blinked, unsure how to respond. After a few quiet seconds, he said, "Mind if I sit?" I nodded slowly. He sat at the far end of the bench, giving me space. We sat in silence for a moment, the sounds of the street filling the space between us. Then he asked, "What brought you here tonight?" I looked down at my hands. I was celebrating. I passed my last business exam today. I've been working 2 jobs, and going to school at night. I just wanted one quiet evening, just something for me. He nodded, listening without interrupting. "I have a 6-year-old son," I continued, surprising myself with how easily it came out. "It's just the 2 of us. I've been saving every extra dollar for tuition, for bills, even for a little cafe I dream of opening one day. I guess I thought tonight I could just breathe a little." He looked at me, not like I was broken, or fragile, but like I mattered. "You know," he said after a pause, "most people wouldn't be standing here if they were in your shoes, they'd have given up long ago." "I almost did," I admitted, my voice low. "More times than I can count." He smiled gently. "But you didn't. That says something." I felt a strange mix of comfort and curiosity. Who was this man? He looked at me again, but this time with something else in his eyes, not pity, not sympathy. It was interest, respect, like he saw something in me I had almost forgotten was there. We sat there for a while, just talking. It was strange, how easy it felt to open up to a stranger. Maybe it was the way he listened, like every word mattered. Like I mattered. He asked me what kind of business I wanted to start. At first, I hesitated. I'd never really shared it with anyone outside my close circle. But then I said it. "I want to open a cafe, nothing fancy, just a warm, welcoming place where people feel seen. Where no one gets turned away, or made to feel small. A space with soft music, books on shelves, art on the walls, and good food that doesn't cost a fortune." He nodded, letting me go on. "I've been saving little by little. Every tip, every bonus check, anything extra, I put it aside. I've got notebooks full of ideas, menu sketches, layout drawings. I even came up with names. My favorite one is Second Chance Cafe. Because that's what I feel like I've been given, a second chance." I laughed softly, embarrassed. "It probably sounds silly." "Not at all," he said. "It sounds like heart. And heart is something money can't buy." I looked at him, unsure how to respond. "You've done all this while raising a child, and working 2 jobs, he asked. I nodded. "I'd get home at midnight sometimes, and after I put my son to sleep, I'd pull out my notebooks, and just dream. That's what kept me going." He leaned back slightly, watching me closely. "Let me ask you something," he said. "What would you do if I told you I could help?" I blinked. "Help? With what?" "With your dream," he said. "With the cafe." I laughed nervously. "That's sweet, but come on, you just met me. I'm a stranger on a bench. And yet I feel like I know more about your character in 20 minutes than I've known about some business partners in 20 years. I stared at him, unsure if he was serious. "You don't even know my name." "Then tell me," he said calmly. I hesitated, then smiled. "It's Maya." "Maya," he repeated. A strong name. There was something steady in his voice, something that made me stop brushing off the idea. He wasn't joking, he wasn't being kind just to make himself feel good. He was serious. Dead serious. Still, I didn't want to get my hopes up. Why would you want to help someone like me? He looked at me, eyes clear and honest. Because people like you don't come around often. You've got vision, work ethic, and heart. And that's the kind of person I want to invest in. For a moment, I just sat there, quiet. My heart was racing. Was this real, or was life just playing one more trick on me before bedtime? I wasn't sure yet. But something told me, this was just the beginning. I was still trying to process everything, when he glanced at his watch, and stood up slowly. I think it's time I introduce myself properly, he said with a slight smile. My name is Charles Whitman. I blinked. The name sounded familiar. Then it hit me. You're the owner? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He nodded. Of the restaurant you were just turned away from. My jaw dropped. I couldn't speak. All the humiliation I had felt just minutes ago came rushing back, but now, mixed with disbelief. I usually stay behind the scenes, he explained. I've built several businesses over the years, and I let my managers run most of them. But tonight, I decided to stop by. Just a last-minute whim. He paused, his expression darkening. And I happened to walk in right when you were being turned away. I looked down, ashamed, but he gently shook his head. Maya, I was horrified. The way they treated you, I was embarrassed. Angry. That is not the kind of place I built. That's not who I am. I stayed quiet, unsure what to say. No one had ever stood up for me like this. Especially not someone like him. I owe you a deep apology, he said. Not just for the way my staff treated you, but for what it represents. I've clearly been too hands-off. That changes today. I nodded slowly, still stunned by his honesty. Then he said something I'll never forget. I've actually been thinking about stepping back for good, he said quietly. The restaurant has done well over the years, but I've been searching for someone with vision, compassion, and grit. To take it over. I stared at him, heart thudding in my chest. I didn't expect to find that person tonight, he continued. But after talking to you, hearing your story, your dreams, I think I just did. My world stopped. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. He smiled gently. What would you say if I offered you the keys to that restaurant? For a moment, time stood still. Because in that moment, everything I thought I knew about my life changed. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept turning over his words in my head. What would you say if I offered you the keys to that restaurant? It felt unreal, like a dream I'd wake up from, back to bills and night shifts and scraped together meals. People like me didn't get handed restaurants. We worked in them, cleaned them, got turned away at the door. Still, the next morning, I showed up. He had given me the address, same place, but the tone already felt different. When I arrived, Charles was waiting outside, smiling like we were old friends. Ready? He asked. I hesitated. Still feels like a prank. He chuckled. You'll see. We walked through the restaurant together. Without the noise and the crowd, it looked different. The dining room was bathed in soft morning light. The kitchen was buzzing quietly with prep work, sharp knives, sizzling pans. People moving with purpose. Charles introduced me to two longtime staff members. Maria, a chef who'd been there for a decade, and Joe, the floor manager from another location. Both were warm, welcoming, and nothing like the woman from the night before. I told them about you, Charles said. They were just as disgusted as I was by what happened. Maria reached out and squeezed my hand. You've got guts. That matters in this business. I smiled shyly, still unsure how to feel. As we walked back through the main floor, Charles said, I've met plenty of people with money, degrees, flashy resumes. But heart, drive, humility, that's rare. I looked around, taking it all in, the walls, the tables, the possibilities. I'm not a professional, I said honestly. I've never run anything before. He nodded. That's why I'm not walking away completely. I'll mentor you. step by step. You'll learn everything you need to know. My chest tightened. Not with fear this time, but with something new. Hope. Real cautious hope. I'm not promising perfection, he added. It'll be hard. But I believe in what you bring to the table. And I think this place needs that. I took a deep breath, and finally said the words that had been sitting on the tip of my tongue since last night. Okay. I'll do it. And just like that, the door that had slammed shut on me the night before quietly opened. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. Every morning, I showed up early, sometimes before the kitchen lights were even on. Charles kept his promise. He mentored me, explained everything from inventory systems, to supplier relationships, to staff scheduling. I had notebooks filled with notes and questions. I soaked it all up like a sponge. Some of the staff were kind from the start, like Maria and Joe. They cheered me on, answered my questions, treated me like I belonged. Others, not so much. A few servers barely acknowledged me. And the manager, still stiff, still smug. The hostess, the same one who humiliated me, barely made eye contact. She acted like I was a guest who'd overstayed her welcome. But I didn't let it shake me. I worked quietly. I asked questions. I stayed respectful. I learned the rhythms of the place. The rush hours, the quiet afternoons, the delicate dance between kitchen and floor. When someone needed help, bussing a table, or restocking, I did it. No task was too small. Little by little, things began to shift. Staff started coming to me with questions. Guests smiled and waved when they saw me. I wasn't just the woman from the bench anymore. I was becoming part of the heartbeat of the place. And then, one day, Charles called everyone to the front of the dining room before opening. He stood beside me, holding a small black box. I've had the privilege of building this place from the ground up, he said, looking around. But the time has come for new leadership. Someone who understands not just food and service, but people. Someone who leads with heart. Then he turned to me. Maya, he said. It's yours now. He opened the box, and inside were the keys. Real ones. Heavy. Warm from his hand. I took them slowly. My fingers trembling. The room was quiet. Even the ones who had doubted me watched in silence. I don't know what to say, I whispered. Just say you'll lead it well, he replied, smiling. My eyes filled with tears. I nodded, clutching the keys to my chest. I will, I said softly. I promise. And in that moment, the same doors that once rejected me now opened with a key placed in my hand. Because of who I was. Not in spite of it. The next morning felt different. I walked into the restaurant not as a visitor, not as a trainee, but as the owner. The moment I stepped through the front doors, everything went still. The hostess looked up and froze. The manager, sipping his coffee by the bar, nearly dropped his mug when he saw me. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't smile, either. I simply called them both into the office. They followed me, nervous, uncertain. They knew. Even before I spoke a word, they knew. I sat across from them, calm, but firm. I think you both remember what happened the night I came here as a guest. Neither of them spoke. The hostess looked at the floor. The manager cleared his throat like he wanted to explain. But no words came out. I gave you both time, I said. Time to reflect. Time to change how you treat people. But I've seen enough. Their faces changed. The manager shifted in his seat. The hostess's eyes widened. I leaned forward. This isn't about me getting revenge. I'm not here to embarrass you or make a scene. But let me be clear. What you did that night wasn't just bad for business. It was bad for humanity. They were completely silent. You never know who you're turning away, I said softly. You don't know their story. You don't know their worth. And honestly, it shouldn't matter. Everyone who walks through that door deserves dignity. Respect. You couldn't offer that. And that tells me everything I need to know. I stood up and slid 2 envelopes. Across the table, termination letters. Already signed. You're both officially released from your positions. Effective immediately. They didn't argue. They didn't fight it. They just nodded, stunned and silent. As they walked out of the office, I watched them go. Not with anger, but with peace. I hadn't stooped to their level. I had risen above it. And I had reclaimed the very space where I was once made to feel small. But now I stood tall, because I belonged here. 1 month later, the doors opened again. But this time, under a new name. Belong. That word had lived in my heart for so long, buried under doubt and rejection. Now it stood proudly above the entrance in gold letters. The space had been transformed, not just the decor, but the feeling. It was warm and inviting, elegant, but not intimidating. Every detail spoke one message loud and clear: you matter here. I invited everyone: neighbors, friends, local business owners, teachers, families. People from all walks of life filled the room. The laughter was easy. The smiles were real. My mom sat at a table near the window, dressed in her Sunday best. When I came over to hug her, she stood and held me tight, tears slipping quietly down her cheeks. I always knew, she whispered. Even when the world tried to tell you otherwise, I always knew. Across the room, Charles sat alone at a small table in the corner. He didn't want a spotlight. He didn't need applause. But when our eyes met, he nodded with a proud smile. He had changed my life, but in truth, he'd only opened a door. I had done the walking. As the night went on, I looked around at the full tables, the happy faces, the food being enjoyed without judgment or fear. This place wasn't just a restaurant. It was a statement, a celebration, a promise. People didn't just come to eat. They came to feel seen, valued, welcomed. And as I stood there, taking it all in, I realized something simple but powerful. I hadn't just found my place in the world. I had built it. They tried to push me out, but life pulled me in. This journey taught me that kindness matters more than we often realize. You never know who's watching, who's listening, or who might be waiting for their chance. Sometimes all it takes is one moment, one person believing in you to change everything. So if this story moved you, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. And please share this story. You never know who might need to hear it today. Thank you for being here with me.